Let's show your team members how to fish, not just bring the fish to you. Let's show you what to do, the rod, the bait.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. Today, we welcome in Elia Blankenship, who is the Director for Financial Institution Management and Technology Advisory with RSM. And when it comes to growth, Elia helps us understand that we are capable of understanding and embracing the work that is required to grow, as long as we come ready to hear what growth truly demands. Hello there, and welcome back into the most recent installment of Growth Ready. I am very excited to be welcoming someone today who I had the pleasure of meeting at a conference earlier this year. We got to chatting. We realized we had a whole bunch in common. And typically what I do these days is when I feel any kind of connection with a person, I say, why don't we continue this conversation on the podcast? Why don't we just see where this goes with a few other people listening as well? And I'm excited to do that with Elia Blankenship today. But before we go any further, Elia, I want to start with the question I start with everybody, and that is, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Oh, that's such a great question, Steve, because it's really a humbling and a serving question. For me, it always means listening, learning, reinventing myself, and not being fixed in the ways that I am. And I could share with you from a consulting perspective, I know I'm a different consultant than I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and even a year ago. And I will say that that's the most critical, important part with any consultant, any firm that you work with, any transformation agent that you work with, is that you are thinking about emerging trends and thinking about growth yourself. That's such key.
I love that. And immediately you've revealed everything about the work that you do today, which I appreciate. This is why I don't need to do the big introductions. My guests kind of explain who they are just through the conversation, which is great. But a couple of things that you say immediately there is, firstly, you're almost poking holes in this almost stigma around the notion of consulting. Like, you've immediately said, okay, hang on, we're going to actually reframe and represent how maybe consulting is seen from the outside in sometimes, in the sense that a lot of people think it's like, hey, come tell me what to do, when so much of what you just said there is this notion of humbling and serving and listening and being able to simply acknowledge that trends aren't what they are, that they are in fact emerging and evolving before our very eyes, but we have to be aware enough to notice. So let's actually start there based on your responses, that when you look at your career as a consultant, how early was it maybe that you were able to see things the way you've just alluded to now? Like, was it an immediate notice that this is how best to consult, or is this something that you've been able to learn over time?
You really hone in on the art over time. You recognize there's a piece that's missing early on. And I'll even reflect further. When I was in industry, I remember we would work with consultants, and their approach at times would come in very fast and furious. Do this, do that, without hearing what we had done, right? So this is me speaking as someone in industry. When we moved over, or when I moved over to consulting, it was a little bit of that, right? We would go in, we would hear, we would provide an analysis, but we're really those folks that they're looking for us from a point of view of authority. But we weren't creating that understanding and that connection. And that's what I felt was missing. So the opportunity came to where we had to reflect even ourselves. We had changes, of course, within our own firm and within our own team members. And some of the team members that really changed the viewpoint for me was one in particular where when he came on site, he's like, listen, you're on site, you're the boots on the ground. You are hearing, you're listening, you're feeling it. You know what this feels like. Be you, lean in, and hear what they have to say. And then let's provide the examples. We cannot come in being the sharpest tool in that box. We are a tool. and we are part of the toolbox, and we will provide recommendations, but let's hear what they have done. And then coupled with that, a lot of reflection in terms of some books that I read as well. I read a lot of books on leadership. My degree is in management and organizational change. And I think that's the important part, right? Is having that emotional intelligence to listen. And in this, I'll even reflect further. Recently, just this week alone, I set up a group of probably 4 or 5 different team members for on site. And one of the team members, we work together, but not work together. We've been part of the same team, but not really been on a project together. And what she took away was, she says, I like your style. You're listening, you're hearing what the client is saying, you know where you need to get to, but you're going to help them get there too. And it's a partnership. And she said when she's at the table at times with others, it's not done that way, right? And that's important. To me, that's key. And so what it allows for me to do, Steve, differently than most, is that I get that connection. I'm connecting, right? And I'm not saying I'm the only one. There's many, many consultants that do what I do, but the important essence of it is building that relationship, listening to who's in front of you, because a stakeholder doesn't have to have a C-suite title. And an influencer doesn't have a C-suite title. And so we need to be able to understand that and bring everyone along in what we do. So that was the critical change in my career was I'm going to hear them. I'm going to listen to what they have to say. I'm going to provide recommendations based on my experience and what I see. And I'm not going to hold back either. So one of our stakeholders on this project, the CFO, he said to me yesterday during dinner, he goes, "You're very candid." I said, because you need that. I go, you don't need me to go around in circles and paint this picture and do this and do that. I said, we'll paint the picture. We'll make it pretty. I said, but here's what you are really paying us for is our experience and time and what we've seen to get you to that accelerator mode to where you want to be.
Yeah.
So being candid is important too.
100. We'll get to candidness. We're all about that on the show. It's kind of why people tune in. And so for me, just listening to you there is that based on the way that you responded to the initial question of what it means to be growth ready, so much of that is very much laying the foundation to eventually achieve understanding. And that's what I like about where you just took that. It's this notion of here we are going in with a sort of a humbling presence, a willingness to serve, a willingness to listen, with the goal being, can we understand? If we can understand, then we can go to the next step, which is that of building the relationship, creating that rapport to ideally create the trust, right? Because eventually you do want to be candid, but it's much harder to be candid with someone who does not trust you. They're going to understand where you're coming from and why you're speaking to them that way. Once we get that trust right, suddenly now candidness seems almost like just a way that we communicate out of respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always relate it to even my marriage. And I know this is not real marriage related, but you can't go in there like a commando, entrepreneur. That's not. They're the commando entrepreneurs from the C-suite. They're the ones that grew this business. Let's respect that, right? Yeah. And let's listen to what they have to say, how fast or slow we're going to go, and let's make sure that we deliver on that. So it's important a way. And why I say marriage is because when I first met my husband, he was a commando entrepreneur, and he still is. Are we going to get married? Are we going to date? Because I don't date. So let's get married. Right. It's like, okay, I'll respect that. I think I want this. Okay, let's move forward.
Respect that. I love it. I love it. Our story's not too different either. My wife and mine, we were pretty short and sweet when it came to the dating and to the engagement part of it. When you know, you know. But I think what I find really interesting here, and I shared this with you before we started recording, and I really want to just express this to our listeners now, is that what's so great about this conversation is that you are someone who inserts themselves into other people's growth for a living. You're asked obviously to come in and do the work that you do, as is most people that work there with RSM. But at the same time, you have this ability to say, well, listen, just because I practice this within, there's also a need and an opportunity for me to practice this when I'm removed, working on myself and looking toward my own future. And we will get to that. But that's what I love about this sort of both sides of growth that we get to navigate with you in this conversation. And going back now to your work as a consultant is this idea of trying to help them get there. I'm hearing a detection of you're trying to help them achieve ownership. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds as though the idea of what you do, and this is just someone who does somewhat similar things for a living, and this is how I look at what I do. I'm curious how much you see your role being creating that ownership from within the client's world to then potentially over time remove yourself from the client's world. So I'm just curious just how much of that plays a part in this.
Huge. That's a
Yeah.
huge part in this. The role of a consultant is, and this is where you're going to hear it, right? Where you get buy-in or not. Where you get buy-in or not is that when you're working with a client, here's how you know what kind of consultants you worked with in the past. This is a huge insight, is that you'll hear these clients say, the consultant told us to do it. They said to do it this way. We weren't asked, right? So it's all about what they were told if you just break it down. So we don't want that. We want to bring the client in through the journey. And we have a methodology, and the methodology is very simple. It's very clean. Is we're going to listen, we're going to plan together, we're going to analyze together, and we're going to deliver together. And the undertone is that we are together. And why that's so important that we are together is because we don't want that outcome to be, I didn't know, the consultants told us, and we were not aware. So the end goal in mind that we keep is we want to deliver on this particular need that you have. Let's fix it. Let's show your team members how to fish, not just bring the fish to you. Let's show you what to do, the rod, the bait, what you're going to do after the fact. And then you test the methodology. You own it because we want to work with you with other projects too. So if you see me as a trusted advisor and my team members that I bring along with the project, you're going to call us for the next opportunity and the next opportunity. And slowly then we are building and we're striving forward to meet your strategic objectives. And we're just partnering you when we need to. We're not there 100%. We're not your employee, right? And that's important because you don't want to add people. You don't want to add staff members that are not there either. And consultants sometimes, they kind of get a little bit murky and it feels like they're employees because they've been there a bit too long. So it's important to deliver, show your partnership, provide a network of colleagues that they can call on, go to the next step, deliver, let them do that activity, let them fish, let them enhance, let them make it better, let them own it, and then move to the next activities that they have on their plans.
Yeah, it's just almost this notion of active learning, right? It's just like
So
we
much.
want them to learn, but we cannot learn through dictating. We cannot learn through just simply saying, "Hey, this is the answer. Now go implement it." It's the idea of you seeing this as a way to say everything we do, every step of the way is together. It's in alignment, and it makes me think of those that are listening now. You may not have the resources to get a consultant within your business, but I almost want to take this one step further and think, who are those people in your world that could be a consultant in life, that could come into your world
That's right.
at times and give you a perspective that is helpful, that you're almost too close to and that they're not. And I think that's something I'm hearing as well, is it's so important, is that, you know, whether it be the role of a consultant or just somebody that you have within your network, the idea that for us as individuals to grow or as organizations to grow, we need people to come close at times, but we don't need them to stay and remain too close for too long, because that prevents them from maybe seeing those elements of growth that those that are too close are unable to see, right?
So true. And it just reminds me of a saying that a former colleague of mine would say. It's like, listen, we are buddy buddies right now. You know, we connected, we gave each other, you know, mentorship. She said, but there's a season and a reason. And she's so right. There is
Oh,
a
I love that.
season and a reason, and we move on. And there is a season and a reason why you need consultants. There is a season and a reason why we ourselves need allyship, mentorship, inside and out, and we need to hear it. That's what's the important part. Because if you don't hear it, it's falling on deaf ears at that point in time. I think that's key. And you know that even that of itself takes a little bit of maturity on the journey of the individual in their role and responsibility, and to
Yeah.
also be able to humble themselves and hear those things. Because I could tell you, and I mean, I'm probably one of the most transparent individual. I'll say, yeah, I don't think I was listening early on in my career, right? Because you're
Yeah.
just so nervous to make sure that you're delivering. That's what's
Mhm.
more important to you. Did I get this right? Did I tie my shoelace? Am I all put together before I go out the door?
Mhm.
Am I, on schedule? I mean, there's all these things that you have to think about as a consultant or even people within your world, right? But when you remove those layers that we put up in defense of who we are, and then you provide that guidance, it really is a beautiful world to be in.
Mhm.
And I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Do I always like it? Maybe not. But do I
Mhm.
reflect on it? Yes, I do.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, there's a number of days where I can reflect on some of my interactions and some of my work with my clients, and just be able to stop and go, oh, that wasn't as fun as it typically would be, or that wasn't as easy as it typically should be. But was it how I needed to communicate? Was it how we needed to communicate? Was it what we needed to be discussing? Typically, the answer is yes, and that's just kind of some of the ugly sides that come with this world of growth. And we keep using that word growth, and I'm usually the main example of forgetting the second part of our title is the ready part, and so
Yes.
like for me, something I heard you talk about there is this notion of like, firstly, a season and a reason. I absolutely love that, stealing that, using that myself 100%. Love, absolutely adore that quote. But what I will say is that, something you piggybacked onto that was this notion of the need to hear. And I'm curious, just in your work, do you typically find that those that you are coming to work with have already decided that they're ready to listen, they're ready to hear, or is there still some work to do there for you? And if so, what does that work look like? Because I think that's where we can maybe relate as listeners the most here, is that I'm hearing, Elia, everything that you're telling me, I'm hearing it. Like I get this idea, this idea of someone coming in, working with me, partnering with me, listening to me, all these kind of things. But am I ready? Am I ready to actually then, after having shared all this, ready to actually listen? So I'm just curious from your perspective, is how much of that is, are they actually ready when you arrive? And how much, if they're not, what does that work necessarily look like for you?
It's a brilliant question. Why is it brilliant? Because it really, there's two ways to looking at it. Are they ready for us? Not really, right? Um, have we laid the groundwork to be ready? Yes. The
Mm,
challenge with this and any work that we do is that there's pride of ownership. And the pride of ownership is a very difficult ego. It's an ego, let's be honest. It's an ego that we have to slowly remove. So, organizationally, are we ready? Yes, the stakeholder and us, we've done everything we can do to plan to say, here's where we're going to have a kickoff. We're going to make sure that these team members are aware, send out emails, connect with them. We even coach to say, tone from the top, let them know we're coming. This is our shared objectives. This is our shared goals, right? Even though we do all that, when we sit down and actually meet the team members, you can get a sense of who is there willing to listen, and you still have a sense of those that are not ready to listen. And I'll say not ready because I don't think that anyone comes into anything not wanting to. They're just
mhm.
skeptical. What are you going
Sure.
to teach me that I don't know? And in my industry, it's quite an interesting thing because this is something that I've been kind of not fighting, but certainly something that has weighed down heavily is that ageism. So if you don't see someone with a little bit of, speckled hair, at times we go, do you really know what I
Right.
need to do? Do you really know
Right.
my job, right? And it's an industry thing, and it might, we see it. So I came from big banking, and big banking, I didn't see that. I mean, they
Mhm.
honor the fact that we're going to hire college kids, we're going to teach you, we're going to put you through this program, and we're going to go for it, right? You saw the appetite. And then when
Right.
I entered a different space of the industry, it was that even when I was there in industry, it was related to how young people are. And it is
Mhm.
related to you look a little bit on the bias side and say, can they teach me? So there is that moment. So let's take it away even from like, oh, are they at an age or season where they can teach me? And then,
Mhm.
so take that piece plus the piece of, hmm, I built this, I did this. What are you going to teach me to do that? So then we remove two biases, then we go into the nitty gritty of, here,
Mhm.
show me what you do. So are they ready to listen comes in so many components. You have to have the ability as a consultant to read the room. You've
Yes.
got to read that room. So you're going to see if Steve's ready to listen, Candace is not, Elia isn't. She's kind of like on the fence and her hands are like wrapped around her body, right? Or the other one's saying, but they're not really saying, they're telling you the resume on who they are. Like, what are you going to tell me? This is who I
Mm-hmm.
am. So yes, so we get it in all flavors. The opportunity there is for us to read the room, connect with those that we're not connecting with, understand where they're coming from individually. And sometimes that's hard in a conference style, but you got to connect with them individually. And then you also have to share what you're observing with your stakeholders so that they can help you too.
Yeah, I'm hearing a title for this section of the episode of pride and perspective, because it's just like
That's true.
everything that you just talked to there. I've experienced. I tell a couple of stories from the stage whenever I speak, and one of my favorite ones is one of my longest serving clients at this point. But the first ever meeting I had with the executive team, 4 people sat down in front of me. One stood pretty much as far away from the meeting as he physically could stand.
Right.
And
Oh,
and I
no.
was like, are you joining us? Like, are you
Right.
joining us? But he's like, no, I'm listening. I'm just like, got it. Okay, so you don't trust me.
Right.
Everybody else is ready to go. And lo and behold, my favorite part of the story is that he's now the most bought in, the most willing to drop his ego at the door, and that's as a consultant, as a coach, you need to be ready to obviously adapt to those moments and be able to be patient with those individuals. But I think just big picture, looking at this from the outside in now for our listeners, is that if I almost want to encourage people and support people, that there's a good chance if you have people in your life that are willing to do so many of these things that you're referencing here, Elliot, like, if you're resistant to it at first, that's so normal. It's so
So normal.
normal, no matter how much of an
So
expert the
much.
person may be, right?
So much. I love that you said that because it's exactly what you said. It is so normal. You just have to acknowledge it. Acknowledge
Mm,
the elephant in the room and then figure out a way to be able to communicate and connect and understand where
mm.
they're coming from as well.
Yeah, yeah, and the need to just give people the encouragement that this work will take time, that if that wall is really high at first, that you're struggling to receive the information for your own personal growth, if it's getting really difficult to do that at first, that wall will slowly start to come down, that you will slowly start to be able to embrace some of what is coming over that wall in your direction. And over time, this whole process will get easier and easier. But I think just allowing you to walk us through your approach, and obviously this is a shared approach with the work you do, not only with RSM, I have no doubt with other consultants around the world, but at the same time, I think it's refreshing to hear it from this perspective of, when it comes to growth, there's not necessarily going to be a time where we're ready to have the discussion around what's required. But if we've got the right kind of people around us to have that discussion with us, then the likelihood of us making some progress with it is a little easier. And I am curious now. I want to just put the spotlight on you now for a moment. I want to come to Elia and just say, okay, when you think about how easy or difficult, or insert whatever word you want, when it comes to the way you're able to practice these things internally, because so much of what you're doing is naturally externally in the world of consultancy. You're explaining, you're communicating, etc. From an internal perspective now, how have you found the ability to transition these skills that you're using within groups to using them maybe towards yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll even start even with my family. I think they're the biggest and the best experiments that we have.
I love that you took us there, actually. I'd love to hear your insights on that.
And it's also when you raise, and I'll start it there, that I'll go into myself a bit.
Mm,
When you raise a family, and I'm so honored to be able to have that opportunity because I know that's something that others may or may not, or it's a
mhm,
decision that they don't. It's okay. But for me, what was so interesting was raising children that are so different and they had different desires, different needs. So I had to be able to communicate with them on their needs. Did I do it right each time? Absolutely not. I still have our daughter that says, Mom, I remember I came home one day with a B plus and you said, how come you didn't get an A? And I
Yeah.
said, did I say that? I go, that sounds kind of crappy, but yeah, it does sound like I would say that.
Maybe I said that.
And I maybe I said that. And the reflection point on my part when she was old enough to hear it was that you drive at a different point than your brother, as an example, because the
Mm.
comparison was with my brother, you didn't do that. I said, no, honey. I said, I was just happy that he, we had to put a bonfire in his bottom to get him going. Different scenario, different person. Can you please get a C and can we graduate? Right?
Right.
Different kid, different thing, right?
I
So
feel like you're describing my own childhood. And the parts are the same. I am the brother, and I had that sister. I had that sister. Just to be clear. But sorry, carry on.
and it's okay though, and it's okay, but that's how I had to learn. And then I reflected. So I was
Mm.
naturally doing this, but I didn't put a wording to it. I just knew it was different, right?
Yeah.
And then as I carry this forward, even to myself on how I learn, I really became an observer of people. If you
Mm.
meet me outside, I love connecting with people. I love being in that world. I love my world. But when you connect with me as a neighbor, I'm really listening to you. When you connect
Mm.
me as a new person, like outside of my world of working, I'm observing, I'm
Mm.
hearing, I'm checking things out. I'm laying the foundation to who you are, what you are, and what will help you and I connect better because
Mm.
sometimes I could be a lot, right? Or sometimes others could be a lot. And so I've taken that approach for me to learn in addition to practical learning. I'm a big podcast listener. I read a lot of books. In my degree in and of itself, I still have my books and I still look at them and I still read them, right? From an organizational management, change management. I'm a big fan of emotional 2.0,
Mhm.
constantly listening, like, and especially anything related to the people side. The skill you can teach, the people side is the important part.
Yeah.
So a little bit of both that I do there, but I do reflect and I do see it how I have organized and talked to my family, I'll say, individually.
Yeah, but there's something in that response that's so similar to what you were saying earlier about things from a consultant perspective. Is that as the consultant, you come in from the outside and you're not too close to it, and sometimes you disappear and then you come
That's
back,
right.
and so much of what you were alluding to there towards the end of that response around whether it be books, whether it be podcasts, whatever it may be, even the way you're having discussions with your children now versus when you had them 10 years ago, like the version of you has evolved. And so when
Mhm.
you read that book from maybe 10 years ago, you read it differently, you receive it differently. And it's the same as those communications that you're having with children. My daughter's only 6, and I'm already looking at conversations from when she was 3 versus when we were 6, and I'm like, what happened to my baby? I'm now being attacked by this sort of emerging teenager. I don't know what's happening right now,
Oh,
but I
yes.
know I have no control over it. That's what I
It's a
do know.
different life form.
Yes, it's a different life form for sure. But even that for me is fascinating from a personal perspective. Is that I look at the way I was able to communicate back when my daughter was 3, for instance, versus now. I don't have the luxury of doing it that way because it's actually making it more difficult for us to communicate effectively. And so, like that's the growth,
It is.
the journey that you're alluding to here is like, how can we just simply acknowledge that whether it be in a relationship or whether it be the way we educate ourselves, the version of ourselves is always evolving. Therefore, the way we approach the relationship, the way we take that information in is always evolving too, right?
Absolutely. And it really is a playbook too from the organizational management. And
Mm.
I always talk about that and I always take snippets from that. Are we storming? Are we forming? What are we
Mm.
norming, right? That's one that's pretty big and popular. But
Yeah.
if we also take snippets from that, you really start your change management journey from a professional perspective before you even go on site,
Mm.
before you start working with directly closest to the clients that are right there doing the job in the process that you're about to change. Got to work
Mm.
close with them. And you got to build also trust, right, in that
Yeah.
manner. And you got to listen and you got to observe. So there's a lot of components with it, Stephen, as you mentioned, and it does really hold true even in your family life, even in your external networking life.
Mm.
Right? You got to build those foundational relationships and then you got to start that change management because I'm sure, Steve, yourself, your relationships with your clients have changed
Mm.
throughout your engagement too.
Enormously, enormously. Yeah, and that is again, just coming back to what you said earlier, like the conversations you have a luxury, a privilege of having more improved conversations, more like higher stake conversations. You get to be, as you said it before, more transparent, more just you can step into someone's space a little bit more comfortably, knowing that I can actually meet you in this space and challenge you in this space because the work has been done to give me that opportunity to do so, and you get to do the same. Like, as the coach, I'm not the one who gets to just challenge. It's not a one-sided thing. You get to do the same to me, and it's coming through in this conversation is that the power of finding those relationships where we can bring our best self into the relationship, and the relationship, as that evolves, the two people within it, or however many people it is, they're evolving too, and everyone's getting a benefit out of just that simple, association with the relationship. It's allowing everybody to evolve. And again, I can talk about this stuff all day because I think it's absolutely fascinating that, for we as people, and the way in which we have what seem like just basic relationships that just are there in our lives, and they just seem to tick along as the days and the years go by. When we actually look back, we realize just how much those relationships have evolved in sometimes much shorter periods of time,
Right.
than we're willing to give ourselves credit for. But one thing, Elia, I'd love to talk to you about here now is that you're operating in these worlds where people, highly growth oriented individuals or businesses, and they've decided making the investment in bringing a consultant in. But now, when you look at your own journey as you look ahead, what does growth look like in your world? How do you make growth a component of your world? Because I think that's a huge part of, the relationship. I'd assume is that growth needs to appear as though it's authentic and organic to you. You're not simply putting on your consulting hat, walking
Right.
in and being a growth-minded individual. You practice that. So I'm curious, just from your perspective, what does it mean to you in your world to be practicing, just a growth-minded approach in life?
It is so critical, Steve, especially right now in the world we live in the transformation space, in the digital transformation, in the emerging trends that we're receiving, in the pressures that, the industry that I serve, which is financial institutions or other industries, are in. And one thing that we have changed so much, and even for myself, is I had to evolve to a speed to market approach too, right? Is that although we talk about building relationships, reading the room, that needs to be compressed. So our clients, and if you look just outside, even our executive pool, they're trying to go to speed to market faster. So that's something that I, as a consultant, I have to change my approach. So that's a
Mm,
growth point for me. How do I do that? How do I do these pieces? The other piece, and I'm going to get a little technical on this piece of it, but it's all around digital transformation. It's all
mm,
around the tools that are being used. It's all around automation, AI, blockchain. What is that? Cryptocurrency, right? You cannot stay behind. You got to go forward. So how do you go forward? You take the opportunity and you leverage what your company provides. RSM is digital first. We've been saying that for many years. We are owning it. We invested in it. We have team members that are part of it. But believe it or not, even though we have internally made that initiative, we still have team members that need to come forward and get themselves educated on the very basics. We are still doing that outside of even our own firm with our clients, right? What does it look like? I'm a little scared, but
mm.
we're going there. So
Yeah.
this is the growth that I personally have to go, is that I had to educate myself on what does it mean to be digital? What does it mean to have, and I'll go geeky on you here and nerdy. What are these integrations? What are these
Mhm.
solutions? What's the infrastructure? We're not at the luxurious space and time where we can say, give that to Steve. We need
Yeah.
to know something. So in my growth, I have to learn all the new things that are coming our way, and I have to really understand it. And
Mm,
will leverage internal resource. I'll leverage external resource. I start talking about it, and then I start being part of it. So being part
mm,
of it has allowed me to champion some of these opportunities. So in addition to doing my transformation work, I'm one of the champions for automation and AI for specifically our financial institution industry. That's so important. And I'll tell you, when I go to conferences, some of our clients still, I go, what do you think about AI? Oh, no, 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 not us, not us, right? And I'm like, but you are using it. And so then when we
Yeah.
break it down, right, just, oh, you have it. What do you mean I have it? Do you have Microsoft?
Mm,
Yes, I do. Do you have Copilot? Yes, I do. Oh,
mm,
do you have this particular software? Yes, I do. They have it. You're using it, right? So
mm.
little by little, you bring them to that conversation, speed to market, knowing what's coming, understand your emerging trends, take the opportunity to learn them from your organization of they're providing. And RSM, you could literally like dive into the knowledge trends and all the articles that we have. There's so
Mm.
many.
Yeah.
You could make this an evening if you want, but that's the
Yeah.
geeky part of me, right?
Well, and but I almost want to, the coach in me almost wants to challenge you on just, framing it as geeky, because I think part of your argument here is that we need to almost put that to one side and embrace the fact that these are just terms now that we as a standard human being at some point very soon are going to have to just learn and understand and how to use it
Absolutely.
in set. Like, it is a competitive advantage at this point just to simply understand the terminology. Whether you know how to use it, that day may come, but if you don't understand the terminology, if you can't maintain a conversation at this networking event or whatever it may be, when somebody jumps onto the topic of just some basic AI and digital conversation, you are hurting yourself at this point. And
Absolutely.
that's the truth. And so I love that you keep saying the geeky part of me, and maybe there is a geeky part of you, and that's fine. But what I'm saying here is that nothing about me is geeky, and yet I am challenging myself to be able to have a conversation on something like digital transformation and be like, I can at least follow the conversation. I can keep up with the
That's right.
context of the conversation. Leave me alone in a room to actually use this stuff, probably not going to get a whole lot done. But the fact is, I can at least keep up to speed, like you say there, with whether it be market trends, whether it be just simply having a conversation with a person at a networking event.
That's right. And it's huge. And you have to leverage, right? And I know
Mm-hmm.
I talked about the RSM, content, but you got to leverage other resources that are out there as well, because you got to be
Mm-hmm.
able to challenge it too. Not just one source, but multiple sources so you can learn more about what is occurring in your specific industry. But I believe that's the biggest change right now that is occurring. Automation is coming. It's not that it's not. AI is coming. It's not that it's not. Embrace it, understand it, and then evolve from it, because that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
critical.
Yeah, yeah, and hey, you may have just given me some material, or at least give me some opportunities. The next time I'm traveling, just if I want to pass a couple of hours of my evening, maybe I'll just have to hop onto RSM and start checking out some of this content. It sounds like I could learn a lot. Let's put it that way.
There's a
So
lot.
I
There's a lot
appreciate
out there.
that. But let's talk about growth for you now. Like, you've been in this role and been doing this work for quite a while, and I think, in my world at least of coaching, I'm always similar to how you answered before about how you're leveling yourself up and investing in yourself. I'm always doing similar practices, but I can't help but always look 5, 10, 15 years into the future and just
That's right.
say, what does that look like? Where am I going to be? What am I going to be doing? And I'm just curious, just from your perspective, when you are just immersed in this world of growth the way in which you are, I can't help but assume that at times your thoughts, your ideas, your imagination, your vision maybe goes off in different directions, and you think, what would be a version of what I'm doing today that looks like this 5 years from now? Well, what does simply Elia look like 5 years from now? I'm just curious, because I think I love asking this to certain guests from time to time, because I cannot help but hear, as you've answered my questions so far, that you are clearly someone who is not only immersed in this world, but just loves it. Like, you get it, you love it, you live it. And so I'm just curious, like, where does your mind go when I say something like, Elia, what does the future look like for you? Where is it you're trying to go maybe next in this, evolution of yourself?
That's a great reflection point, Steve, and something that I actually have been talking to some of my allies, some of my mentors about. Where do I
Mm-hmm.
go from here, right?
Yeah.
And where do you go from here? And there's so many ways to go from here. So I've been thinking a lot about it. One of the ideas, and it's probably like three-quarters done, is I have written a book. I have almost done, but I haven't published. Shame on me, right?
Mm.
Why? But I haven't done that. And so, all around digital transformation, I have thought of opportunities where I want to put content out and be able to teach on whether it's industry or non-industry related,
Yeah.
the tools, the tactics, the block and tackle, the strategy, right? To be able to provide you information all around that in a learning method, in a
Mm.
way that I could pick it up and I could start doing something right away with it. Thought about that. I thought about even, just really honing in and coaching at the executive level all around the operation, not the strategic piece. I think,
Mm-hmm.
there's team members like yourself that do that better. But certainly we touch a bit on strategy, and it's more on like the tactics. What do we need to do so that we
Yeah.
can remedy a little bit of the sunken costs? I thought about also, I mean, can you tell I've been thinking?
But I anticipated an answer like this, so I'm here for it. I love it.
I even thought about getting a little deeper, even with our team members here, to say,
Mm,
let's build a bunch of use cases and opportunity for our industry clients,
mm,
and let's be able to deliver on that. Let's accelerate them, right? So
yeah.
it's kind of like putting tiger groups together, building some product and service, and getting it out to market quickly. So
Mm,
I have had a lot of thoughts related to what the future looks like for me and what do I want to do next. I mean,
mm,
it always kind of revolves around transformation work. It revolves around people side. I do want to be around people. It evolves around continuous learning and how
yeah.
do I provide that information. I've been blessed in my mind to be able to have been in positions. They're not easy. They're tough. And
Yeah.
have things like gone my way sometimes? Absolutely not. You're like, oh shoot. Or you take on a
Yeah.
project and it's really critical because if you don't hit that nail on the head perfectly, people might lose their positions or this
Mm,
organization might not be there, right? So there's a lot that weighs you down, but at the same time, I kind of push through it. It's like, no, we're going to push through, we're going to get it done. That
yeah.
tenacity, I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. But that's how I see how do I serve an industry, a subject, a transformation that I have enjoyed for too many years of my life and I have had the opportunity to do. So
Yeah.
I'm still a work in progress, Steve. But as you can
we all
see,
we all are. We all are. If there was a subtitle to the show, it would be "We are all a work in progress." Like that's one of the things that comes through in most of my discussions. But I really appreciate all the different avenues of ideas and perspectives that you have on yourself and the direction you're going. I think that is a really again, normal response for the type of folks who listen to the show is that, if you're anything like me and you have this squirrel mind and shiny objects can catch your eye at a moment's notice, you think that the next idea is the idea and you chase that idea down a rabbit hole and you forget, oh, I'm leaving like 10 things over here that need my attention right now. That's just a little glimpse into my everyday. But I think for me, the way in which you responded, what I love about it is that you are the proof of needing around you what it is you provide to others. Like you reference the book, you reference the ideas. Some of these ideas, they've come to the surface, or some of these ideas, you've gone a few steps of the way, but you've not brought them to completion yet. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. That's just part of the human experience. And that's when we start to ask these more maybe difficult questions of what's keeping me from finishing this? What's keeping me from getting this across the line? And that's the transformation. That's the final piece of this. And I'd have to assume in a lot of cases, this is where some of your clients ask you to meet them, is that they've taken things so far and then they suddenly go, ugh, like we're it's not that we're stuck, we're just unsure.
that's right.
We haven't quite got these next
That's
steps
right.
figured out.
That's exactly correct. And that's where great tie-in and pivot, Steve, because that's where I should be hiring a coach for myself, right? At that point in time to say, okay, here's where I am. I'm stuck. I'm at that
Mm,
point, and I'm recognizing it just like our clients do, just like those, I'll say, projects that we get. There's a problem. I don't know what it is. We tried this, we
mm,
tried that, or we didn't fully complete. Help, right?
yeah.
I'm at the help point. Like, okay, so what's my next? So what do I look like in the next 10 years, 5
Yeah.
years, 12 years, 15 years? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the fun part, and I love that. I love that you're able to now see like that. This world that you operate in is very much the world that has now created where you're at in your life too, and I love that, and think there's going to be nothing but new transformation heading your way, which is an exciting place to be in, no matter when and how that transformation occurs down the road. But Elia, you should have been able to tell by now. We could talk about this all day, and I do try to keep time limits to these conversations for this reason. Otherwise, that they would turn into many hours, and folks that I'm talking to are busy, and they don't have those hours to give me. So it's all good. But I really do appreciate everything that you provided us in this episode. And before I let you go, though, I would love for you just to share with us, whether it be about yourself, whether it be about the work that you do there with RSM, where can we maybe learn more so that folks can understandably, based on this conversation, if they have that curiosity just to follow up and learn more. So where can we learn more about you and RSM so people can reach out?
Thanks, Steve. So a couple of places. So I'm absolutely active on LinkedIn. So you could find me on LinkedIn, Elia Blankenship. And at the same time, if you also want to reach out directly with RSM or through RSM, I have, of course, elia.blankenship@rsmus.com. Also within our RSM page, you could also find us in the industry, under industry, banking, and then you can see some of the work that I've done there as well. And as well as not just myself, but other colleagues too. So certainly through work, through LinkedIn, I'm very active there and reach out. I do respond to emails through there. I do respond directly. And you're also going to have my personal email as well there too. And of course, always through Cell.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, Elia, and we'll have all that information in the show notes as well to make things as easy as possible for those that would like to reach out. But in the meantime, it has been an absolute pleasure. I expected it to be great, and it's been even better than that. So I just appreciate your time. This was an absolute joy for me, and just best of luck with everything moving forwards.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. And thank you again for having me on.
And my thanks again to Elia for joining us on this episode. Such a wonderful conversation. I feel as though we've just taken this idea of what a consultant is and we've just really challenged it in a wonderful way, in a healthy way, in a great way. And I actually encounter this in coaching all the time. Whenever I tell people I'm a coach, they assume that I kind of come in and work with people that have problems and issues and need to be fixed and all this kind of thing. And really, I'm like, well, no, that's not what coaching is. Coaching is really about revealing possibilities. And I love that Elia's been able to do that from a consulting side here, is that no, it's not as simple as just come in and tell you what to do. There's so much more to the relationship. There's so much more to the work. And I think that's really why I want to leave you with today for you to take away as my key takeaway is that of the work. This growth journey is filled with work. You heard all the different ways that Elia and the folks there at RSM do what they do and how they get the results they get. And it comes over time, and it comes with visiting once and going away and visiting again and trying things differently and revealing parts of ourselves that we're not necessarily ready to reveal, and we're certainly not ready to receive it and hear it. And the list goes on. And folks, that's just the work. That's growth. That's what we have to do the work around to ready ourselves for. That's why Growth Ready is what it is. It's why I believe in this mission so clearly, and why this show is so effective at what it does, is that the heart of it, we are encouraging you do the work to get ready so that growth becomes an experience and a journey that you are capable of taking. I did not say that it becomes easy, because it never, ever does. It does not become easy at any point. Does it maybe become obvious, and does it make sense? Absolutely. You can help yourself with the part that we're still figuring out, and you can figure things out a little bit more effectively. But at the heart of all this, folks, it's work. It's hard work. But it's the kind of work that readies you for the growth that you are capable of achieving. And so I appreciate so many of those insights courtesy of Elia. But for me, that is a resounding takeaway that I'm taking from this, that I hope you heard too, is that this growth journey is work, but you just have to be ready to listen and ready to sign up and do the work. So again, my thanks to Elia for joining us. As always, my thanks to you for listening. If you are a new listener to the show, I appreciate you coming, but don't let this be your only visit. Make sure you're subscribing to the show so you continue to get this fabulous content from guests such as Elia moving forwards. Furthermore, if you really enjoyed it as much as I did, go ahead to either iTunes or go to Spotify and click the 5th star to let us know that it was that good. And also be sure to share this show. Let people know, those that are within your network, that you know this kind of content would resonate and would be of impact to them. Don't hold it onto yourself. Make sure you're sharing it with them as well. Folks, in the meantime, as always, best of luck with anything and everything you've got going on in your world. And I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.